Um, is that any better?
Yes, that's a lot better.
Okay, I just moved my cell phone away. I'm wondering, Janine, if you could kind of maybe look into that more, because there is an assessment that is done by the navigator with anyone who wants to go to level 3 to 5 to look at their readiness for it. And so do you think maybe there's a confusion about, I don't know that I have ever heard you have to use a specific curriculum. And we have level, I think you have to use some kind of curriculum. But I don't think they tell you what it has to be in Colorado Shines.
Well, if you're fading in and out, Pam, what the coach told our people is you can only use a curriculum that has an assessment that is attached to it or designed to be used with it, and you have to do the assessment.
I know that within the structure of all of level 3 to 5, once you get in and look at the requirements, I would try to get a little bit more help on that for people going from level 3 to 5. And
going from level, yeah.
From level 2 to 3 to 5 to see maybe if there are clarifications that could be made. I haven't heard anybody mandating creative curriculum because we have level 4s that don't use creative curriculum.
But do they use something that has an assessment attached to it? That's what I'm trying to find out is other options, and where do I go to find them?
Yeah, they do gold. And gold costs about $9.95 per child per year.
Janine, this is Angie, and Kathy has plans to call you this afternoon because there's a misunderstanding between what she told Barb and what Barb's telling you. So she'll be calling you later on today.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad. My apologies to everyone. It was just a panic moment. So.
No problem. Thanks, Janine. Okay, this is Liz. Good morning, everyone. I'm here with Heather in our office, and looks like we have 25 people on the call. I'm not going to, well, let me go ahead and just run through the list real quick. We have Lucinda, Rick, and just a reminder that the call is being recorded. Thank you, Rick. Angie, Betsy, Pat, Carol Fowler, Claudia Straight, Karina, Danielle, Heather Hanna, Heather Hawk, Holly, Janine, Kathleen, Lisa, Megan, Margaret, Michelle, Pam, Sandy, Stacy, Stephanie, and Vanjie. We're likely to get a few.
And Sherry Valdez.
Sherry Valdez is on, and it looks like Stacy Petty is also on. Okay, very good. All right, so I looked over notes that Heather took for our call on Thursday, and then I also looked through emails last night, and I combined those two and sent them to Emily. I've also heard from a few of you, like Julie and Bev, that you're either collaborating with other councils or you're on your own and you've submitted your own questions just on your own, which I think is good. It's I'm a little bit nervous and it's a little bit daunting to be able to capture all the questions. I want to make sure we're doing this right. But it didn't really seem like we had come up with some really solid questions for the state between last Thursday, during last Thursday's call, and questions that I've had from you, in that you've all been able to answer each other's questions. As a group, you've been able to answer questions. Now that I might be wrong about that, so I want to check with everybody, and we definitely want to capture any questions that need to be submitted today. I mean, obviously, we're at the 11th hour, 12th hour right now because questions need to be submitted by noon. So, are there any last-minute questions that you have not submitted on your own that you would like ECCLA or Emily, the Denver Council, to submit before the noon deadline today? That's first and foremost. I'm going to open that up to everybody. Okay, that's good. That's a big relief to me. And as you may know, Sarah has also been out these last few weeks. She's dealing with some family challenges, so Heather has stepped in. So that's the other piece of this that made me a little nervous. Sarah was helping me out with this, and Heather stepped in and doing a great job. But again, I want to make sure nothing is falling through the cracks on our end. So it sounds like we sent out, councils were sharing documents last week. I tried to pass all those along and make sure everybody was receiving all of the resources that were being shared. People are so appreciative of that. I can tell you I've received a few emails where people just are so grateful that you all are sharing amongst yourselves and that the PA and the expertise is being shared among councils so freely. So I'm so pleased that that's happening, and I hope you all are finding that as valuable as we are as ECCLA. So I think we just open the floor now, open up the floor and see what lingering questions you all have, what concerns you have. Obviously, the deadline is approaching. It is the 17th of April, and the RFA responses are due on May 1. So what else? What other help do you need? What questions do you have for the group?
Liz, this is Sherry Valdez. I did not see the letter from Denver, the commitment letter for the providers. Where can I find that? I think Emily was going to share that, and I don't remember seeing it.
So the letter of intent, is that the same thing?
I think so, yeah. The providers
Okay.
were going to sign so we can show their interest.
Right. I can send that to you. Again, I sent it to the ECCLA group list, but I can do that again right now. Sherry.
I appreciate that. Sorry, I couldn't find it.
You're welcome. No problem.
And this is, go ahead.
Benji, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been listening to recordings, not on the calls because I was not available. And you just mentioned materials. I did get the letter of intent. I got that, but you, Liz, just mentioned other materials you've been sharing, and I just looked and I don't see any other emails from you with share outs.
Vanjie, this is Janine, and my question is along those lines. Somebody said they were going to send their sample DHS letter out to everyone, and letter of agreement, and I didn't see that, and I don't recall who said they were going to send it.
This is Liz. I'm going to look back at Friday's emails because I believe that some resources were sent out on Friday.
So I got this social emotional stuff on Thursday, but that doesn't have anything to do with the RFA, and I didn't get anything else from you, Liz, on Friday.
Okay, and I don't think I was sending, well, let's see, hang on.
Hey, Vanjie, did you receive, I think it was Sherry that sent out her strategic or her work plan. Did you get that?
I don't think so. Sherry Valdez?
I think so.
Yeah,
feel
I
like I got
actually, right,
And
sorry.
Okay.
I sent it on 4/20 to the group list. And it's the Exhibit C, Statement of Work Plan, Colorado Shines, Quality Improvement Support. That went out on 4/20 on Thursday. Sorry, Vanjie, that was Thursday.
On 4/12, you mean?
No, on 4/13.
Oh, okay. Nope. All I have from you have to do with EC funder questions.
All right, I'm going to forward this to the whole group again. Sorry for the duplication, but I want to make sure everybody's getting it. And Vanjie, I'm going to send it to you as well. I
Thank
typed in your
you.
email. Yep, so I'm sending that again right now. Okay.
I'd like to, this is Pam, I'd like to say that thank you very much for sending that out to us. I thought it was very helpful, very clear.
All right. That might be the only, and then there were some conversations amongst you all about question 24. I'm just looking at the email chain. But it sounds like those were resolved as well. Let me open the latest one. So I'm going to start sharing my screen so you can look at this as well. Hang on just one second. Can you all, Heather, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was email chain about question 24. You guys, did you all receive this? Are there lingering questions around this? I think the last response, other than Lisa's, which was a bummer, but Bev had said question 24 was really confusing, but I believe that question 34 clarified it to say we need to take 75% of the base QI funding for year one. And then she says questions 62 and 65B restate the interpretation of question 34. So here are the details down here.
And this is
Go
Lisa.
ahead.
I guess one of the things that we are thinking about, and I'm just wondering what other folks are thinking, is that, you know, the biggest piece of this project right now is to get up to 60% engagement. And of course, that means everybody you engage has to agree to take CCAP. So that's a pretty steep expectation. And yet your outreach can only come out of your program operating. It can't come out of QI. So,
Yeah.
and your level 1 to 2 can only come out of program operating, not out of QI. So are other people finding ways to be and thinking about all that?
Hi, this is Stacy. I would just say the only other thing we've been doing that's been successful is we've partnered with our licensing agents, and they're helping us quite a bit with some outreach and connecting us with, hey, Susie, you know, Jones over here is really interested in engaging. You might want to give her a call, which has at least helped us with a little bit of it and save some time and not feel like we're just all the time cold calling people. But that's been a successful strategy for us.
This is Margaret. I think that engagement is defined as being a level 2, not necessarily CCAP.
Right, but they can't apply, they can't, am I understanding correctly? So level 2 is 60% of anyone, and then only if we're going to level 3 through 5, they have to have a CCAP agreement. Is that what people are understanding? Or are you understanding that in order for us even get them to level 2, they have to agree to work with CCAP?
This is Janine. This is my understanding that in order to get quality improvement incentives in starting July 1, they have to have CCAP and be working toward 3 to 5 or succeed in 3 to 5. It's a little mushy to me. But just, you can't support anybody getting through level 2 after July 1, and you can't support anybody who doesn't take CCAP after July 1, is my understanding. And if somebody, you know, it'd be helpful to know what others are getting from this.
So you can support people from level 1 through 2 no matter what?
Yes, you just can't use QI funds for it.
They don't get any incentives once they reach level 2 if they don't take CCAP? Or is that?
Well, they have to be level 2 by June 30th.
No, I'm talking about after when we're now reaching for this 60%. If they don't take CCAP, do they get anything from us other than us supporting them through our program operating budget for levels 1 to 2? I don't know if I'm making this more confusing. I'm just trying to figure out. We're trying to decide, like, you know, how many people do we actually have to get to take CCAP in order to reach the 60% mark? Or
well, you have to take, Lisa, it's Gretchen. In order to, I mean, they're using your base number of all your centers in your whole county. So 60% of that whole is what they're using. So those include non-CCAP sites. So to get to your 60%, my understanding is your 60% comes from your whole number. And what we're doing here is helping them get from a 1 to a 2 as part of that 60% activity. Mm-hmm. And then if they want to go to 3 through 5, then we'll be able to pull down incentive for that.
Only if they take CCAP.
Yeah, see, the thing is I have county dollars.
But I meant for this funding.
Yeah, for this funding, you know, that's probably a question we need to ask. If we haven't asked it already, I think we need to put the scenario completely out.
Because I guess my question is, at what point does you must have a fiscal agreement
or pending
that come in? Does it come in from the very beginning, or does it come in after they've reached level 2? At what point do they have to have that fiscal agreement?
You know, this is Pam. I do think we should ask that question very clearly, because we were told it is the licensing specialist job to get them to a level 2 after July 1, and that we could, it's our understanding, we can only work with CCAP people or help them start taking CCAP.
This is
right.
Stacey.
And go ahead, Stacey.
Sorry, Pam, you were cutting out a little bit. Did everybody hear what Pam had to say?
Yes.
I'm going to try to call in. I don't think this is working.
So I was trying to find where it talked about what you're referring to, Lisa, and on the webinar on slide 12, it says general initial license program eligibility requirements. Yield a current permanent license in compliance with rules and regs or Head Start rules and regs if applicable. They enroll kids under the age of kindergarten. They hold a level 2 or higher at the time of application. They have at least applied for a CCAP fiscal agreement, and it has to be either in active or pending status. And they have to indicate acceptance of CCAP on their Colorado Shines profile. Then if they meet those, then they can submit an application for QI and incentive supports on the quality improvement tab. And it says targeted QI programs must meet eligibility requirements. So my interpretation of that is at level, once they have a level 2, to qualify for those dollars, they have to meet those eligibility requirements.
Pat. Well, my understanding is that's for getting the QI dollars. I plan to put some type of incentive in my program operating budget. There's also the 3-month sort of piece that we have between July and October that I plan to revise my budget to include some incentives for those 3 months of quality funding where we have the contract extension.
That's brilliant.
Pat, will you say that one more time? I'm sorry. I'm just
Yeah, okay. So for those of us that currently have like school readiness, CCAP, ITQA, we have a 3-month cushion. So we have that 3-month extension during which you could amend your budget to include some incentives for getting programs to a level 2. What we found to be most effective really was when we said, get to a level 2, and in this case, this year we were given $400. Licensing staff are told that they're to be ambassadors, but they're not providing the kinds of one-on-one, sit down, help you upload documents kind of thing that councils have been doing.
This is Claudia. Has anybody come across what happens if you've already got 60% of your providers at a level 2 or higher?
Well, they say your council is supposed to set higher benchmarks.
Well, the one thing is that technically you can only support 60% of them in QI from October to December. And then after that, so everybody else that's above your 60% after that would go on a wait list, and as soon as January comes, you can start supporting the rest. So they are kind of holding everybody's amount of money to ensure that everybody can reach that 60% mark by December, if they could. And then after that, you can, the wait list folks will start receiving support. So you can only support 60% October through December.
So strategically, wouldn't it make more sense to use, and this question's primarily for folks who are like Pat and myself who have that cushion, but wouldn't it make more sense to then reach out to the ones who are not going to take a CCAP contract and help them during this time and reserve the ones who you're already working with to put on your waiting list and start serving them in January to go above your 60%? Because they're a shoo-in. I mean, they already meet the criteria. Does that make sense?
It kind of does, yeah. And I think the other thing that we're trying to think about is how do we best incentivize people to start taking CCAP when the amount of funding they're going to get is so minimal? And so also thinking about how do we try to do some of that initially. People are like, I'm not going to pay the amount of money that you give me. At least that's what we're hearing from folks in our community. Not everyone. There's some people who are willing to take it anyway.
Right. And in years past, we've had where they'll sign up for a fiscal, but then they don't actually take the kids.
Yeah, but that creates, I mean, some of our programs are saying ethically they just feel really bad about that because they're going to start getting fiscals and then they're going to turn kids away. I mean, that's bad business.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it. No, I'm not saying it's good business. I'm saying that in past when we had where they had to take CCAP, they said that they would in order to be in the program, but then they actually didn't. I'm not supporting that we go out and do that. I'm saying that by putting that carrot in front of some people, it moves the system, which actually doesn't support the kids. That's just something to be aware of.
This is Pam. I'd like to have a formal question. We are almost at 60%, and I did not quite understand what you said, Lisa, like you can't enroll anymore. That what you were saying from October to December if you reach your 60%?
Well, if someone else wants to try to explain it better, does anyone else want to take a stab?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So my understanding is that from October to December, you can only enroll 60% of your programs in receiving QI support. And everyone else that falls above the 60% has to be on a wait list until January. And then in January, additional funds based on the fact that some counties won't have spent down all of their funds because they didn't enroll 60%. Those funds will then be reallocated to communities where you have folks on wait lists because you already are supporting 60. And I feel like I just used way more words in that description, made it more confusing. So if anyone else wants to take a stab.
No, I agree with that. That's why I was asking when it makes sense for you to hang on to the folks that are a shoe-in until January and try and work your way up to 60%, not including them between now and October, using folks, putting in folks to get them from 1 to 2 with the funding that you have, because that funding will not be available later. So I was just thinking if you already hit your 60%, take maybe 20% out and put them on your waiting list because they're already good. You know that in January you'll have them. But that was just more looking at it from a strategic point of view in terms of making sure that you can utilize as many dollars as possible to serve as many sites as possible with as much funding as you can pull together.
Hey, this is Claudia. So the funds from July 1 to October, can those be used? I have school readiness, but that's all I have. I have CCAP, but it's only for one site. What will I be able to do then if I'm already at my 60%? So am I just waitlisting everybody that comes across at this point until January?
Yes, I would say yes.
Well, and what I think what Gretchen's saying is be strategic in who you waitlist and who you bring in now. So have some type of rubric that can justify why you're bringing in some people earlier to give them support versus waitlisting them.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying, is that if you have somebody who you know already counts, then you have a period of time right now where you can add to your 60% and make it work for you. And then when you're going to go over 60%, you wouldn't have to work as hard later because you would already have them. I don't know. It's really hard to explain.
All right. What other questions do people have, or does anybody else want to comment on that topic or strategy?
Well, I like Pat's strategy, and the only thing that I would add is when I was at SubPAC meeting and I asked about how to get from 1 to 2, Marianne told me that R&R was supposed to do that. And so I said, well, I'm not sure how R&R is supposed to do that for the whole state. And so, but she told me that it was not the job of councils to get providers from 1 to 2. It was licensing, it was R&R's job, and then it was licensing's job to sign off on 2. So we're not going with that plan here because we know how stretched everybody is trying to take care of this. But I would just put that in there. I think we need to address it perhaps in our questions. And I know we're running down to a half an hour, but I'd really like to have that question written out. And Kathleen, we hear background noise on your phone, just so that you know.
Sorry.
Okay.
Really loud.
Really
loud office. Is somebody
This is Heather. I just had heard from before the RFA opened, we had just heard that that all the funding that was received under Race to the Top, we were supposed to be making sure that our engagement levels were up, and that was, you know, that was their rationale for not extending any more funding, incentive funding for moving people from programs from level 1 to level 2. That the same message that everyone else heard.
This is Pam. I did not hear that, but I don't know where I got the idea that that's true, but I think we definitely need a very clear question about what moving people from 1 to 2, and is that part of this RFP? And then I'd like a clarification about who puts them on the waiting list, or how is that going? I'd like a clarification about from October through December. Is it can you put everybody on and then they'll tell you? You know, I wanted to put everybody on and then wait and see what they said for a wait list.
Yeah, I think we just need that 60% thing clarified for everybody. But it sounds like it's breaking down into a couple different questions.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we have to be very clear about our question, because otherwise they're just going to tell us to refer to the RFA.
I know, that's a good point. I was frustrated by some of that. Oh, just refer. We wouldn't have asked the question if we understood what they had said in the first place.
Well, and maybe we put in the question something like, we've looked at the RFA thoroughly and all pertaining points and still are having some need for clarification. You know, because yeah, I'm confused about things, and it told me to go back to the RFA. I have, and I'm still confused.
Right, we have to clarify that. We have to put that out there first. I agree, Janine, because otherwise it makes it seem like we're stupid and just don't understand, or they're arrogant and they think that they wrote it so well the first time that it doesn't need to be written again. And either case, it's not going to be taken care of. And so I think by stating somehow that after referring to the RFA, these questions remain. You know.
Yeah, I think that's right. After referring to the RFA and thoroughly reviewing it, we have still different we still need a specific clarification and response that does not refer us back to the RFA, which we have tried. I mean,
right.
and they may still do it, but yeah, because it's exactly it. It's either calling us stupid or they think we're calling them inadequate or something.
So this is with, in the interest of time, and I don't see Emily on the call, how do you want to get this question submitted? Gretchen or Lisa or Janine, do you want to do that as a council on behalf of all the councils? Again, ECCLA is not involved in the process. I don't think it's appropriate for us to submit questions. Does somebody want to take that on?
Liz, your phone is making a horrible noise.
Oh dear.
Yeah, a lot.
It sounds like a lot of loud vibration. But I could barely get some words out of there that you're asking who wants to submit questions on behalf of councils. I'm happy to be the one to do that. I assume Sarah is taking notes right now. You want to just type in the chat box, Liz, about who's taking notes from ECCLA that can get them to me. I am happy to submit the questions. Now, if I remember correctly, they're due once in a half an hour.
Yep, that's right.
So, I mean, I need the questions probably from someone by 1:15 so I can make sure they're.
So I don't know, is everybody echoing?
Well, someone, Julie Witt, said she's hearing echo no matter who talks.
Okay. But Lisa, you can understand me?
I can, so Gretchen, we'll just have a conversation.
Well, I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just thinking in terms of these questions. I think there were probably 3 different things. One of them was about are we only able to go to 60% regardless of how many providers we have engaged in the by October 1? Are we only able to request funding for 60%? The second one was, are we able to help sites get from a level 1 to a level 2, whether it be with operating budget or with QI dollars? And the third one is, once a site has reached level 2, can we use quality dollars to help them with 3 through 5, or can we only use those dollars for sites that are CCAP? And I know that it refers to, and I think we just need to preface it with, although the RFA in some I think we've even said this, like it contradicts itself, because the base formula is all sites in the county, and the 60% is all sites in the county, but yet the QI dollars are specific to CCAP sites. So where the contradiction is that either we should be only talking about CCAP sites and only 60% of CCAP sites, or 80%, or whatever the percent of CCAP sites it would be, or we should be talking about all sites. Because to work with all sites to a single point is not really about quality at that point. And I'm sorry, I mean, I know it's muddled, but if there's a way that we can express those things in 24 minutes, I think that would answer a lot of questions that I know we have here about how we're going to try and really make it work for the county and the council.
So this is Stacy. I think that if you guys are wanting to ask the CCAP question, I think that that clarification would be really good. But I think the 60% question was answered in the question sent out on Friday. Question 65, letter F, says it's likely our council will have higher participation rates with centers and homes, is what it referred to. But in the answer, it says these funds shall be awarded to licensed programs meeting the Colorado Shines eligibility requirements, and referred us to Exhibit I. Awarded early childhood councils will be able to award up to 60% of programs within their service area in the first 3 months. And then it goes on to say if you have more than that and there's money left on the table, like what Lisa was saying, that then they will start awarding waitlisted programs based on the order that people applied. You know, so if you miss the date, whoever applied first, it'll be first come, first serve. So I think the 60% question in my mind was answered with that question, is they're saying we can award up to 60%. If we go over that and there's money left over, it's possible we can get them in after that date if there's money left.
The thing is you're talking about then awarding sites that may or may not take CCAP, because unless your 60% is all CCAP providers, what exactly are you going to be awarding them?
No, and I think based on the eligibility requirements, it says they have to have a CCAP contract. So I think it's based on them having a CCAP contract is what makes them eligible.
Right. So then you're assuming that 60% of the sites in my county, for me it's 272, are CCAP providers, and that's not true. So then the assumption would be that I'm going to somehow get the other 130 who make my number, my 60%, to miraculously all of a sudden accept CCAP in order to meet that. And so I think that that's where the disconnect is between the 60% of all providers and then requiring them to be CCAP as well, because 60% of my county does not take CCAP. Nor will I be able to get, I will not be able to get that.
I know ours don't either, but we are going to start working right away on figuring out who doesn't take CCAP and start doing outreach here now to see if they're interested in it and want to start the paperwork.
So I guess tell me what the question is. Stacey, from your perspective, what's the question? Or are you feeling like all questions have already been answered that we've talked about?
I feel in regard to this question about what is eligible and what the 60% means, I think that I felt that was answered in the answers we got back, but it sounds like others still are confused. So I don't know that I'm the right person to ask what the question is, because I feel like I know the answer.
I think that it makes sense in terms of what they sent. My issue is that with school readiness dollars in legislation don't require CCAP. So I think that for the state to take the liberty to change the requirement of the funding without having a bill change the requirement of the funding means that councils have to do something with this that was not previously required and is actually not required in the state legislation. So I guess that's where part of it is as well. I have school districts that run half-day programs that don't take CCAP, but they've been eligible for school readiness funding in the past because they're a low-performing school and they have a preschool program inside of them. So that's where the clarification might be the root of the issue, is that we have sites that are no longer eligible.
So then maybe with that information, Gretchen, maybe the question is, if a program would only have previously qualified for school readiness funds and not the other funds, are you saying that in order to qualify starting with this next fiscal year, they have to also meet these new eligibility requirements?
They're going to say yes. I mean, that's very clear. In RFAs, they have to meet the eligibility requirements.
Yeah, that's what I think they're saying too.
I don't want to keep asking questions that make us look like we know what we're talking about. So I appreciate, Stacey, that you feel like questions have been answered, and I don't want to ask in question if we feel like they've been answered unless there's something that's very confusing to folks about the answer. I do appreciate, Gretchen, the piece around how can they change legislation requirements.
Right. I think I just need to call Senator Todd on that one. I'll just have to do something around the legislation itself to see if the department has the liberty to do what they are doing with that funding.
Yeah, because what they had said was they tried to streamline and kind of mold together, and I'm paraphrasing, what the requirements were, the different funding streams to come up with a base level eligibility requirement.
Right.
So, yeah, Gretchen, if you were to ask that question, and I think that's the way to go, is to ask some legislator. There's another, they came out with some rules around school readiness, been in that program forever, and they clearly stated that you got 3 years to improve quality. And how has that changed? And we asked for a copy of, we sent and asked Lisa for a copy of the rules and regs and school readiness and have not received anything. I think that's another question to ask. Are they trying to circumvent legislation? Okay.
Right. Right. And I think I'll just talk to my legislator about that because I don't want to make everybody mad by asking that question through the RFP process. You know, I go to the subpac meetings and none of this has been discussed at subpac, and that's where policy gets made. So I think I'll have to look and talk to legislators about the policy side of it. So I know Lisa's got to get going.
And Gretchen, not just you. I mean, I think ECCLA has a role in helping to advocate for that as well. So I don't want you to feel like you need to do that because you go to subpac and because you have a good relationship with your legislator. So let's put that on the agenda at some point, ECCLA Policy Council or committee or whatnot. So knowing that we've got 15 minutes until questions are due, are there any other questions that need to be submitted that people feel like they did not get the answers to or have come up since the last questions?
This is Margaret. Question, is the statement of work supposed to be 3 years or 1 year?
I feel like that was answered somewhere.
Was it answered? Okay, I can look, I just.
You know where that was answered?
I'm looking.
I'm looking as well because I do think it was answered.
And I think the answer was 3 years, but
Takes a second to scroll through 70 questions. Hold on. I can in the thought of time, since I'm not finding it quickly. I could email it out to the group.
You know what? I think it was answered. I think it was answered in the statement of work itself. Period of performance is the state fiscal years 2017 to 2020, and that's right on exhibit C, page 2 of 9 of the statement of work. So it is 3 years.
3 years.
we barely heard you, Pam, but what we did hear is it's 3 years. Oh, yeah, question 28.
28.
And it tells you to follow the RFA on page 13 and 14, section 4. So it has been answered. All right, any other questions? I will say Larimer County did submit quite a few questions over the weekend, so we will get more answers from them. I'm sure everybody on their own has submitted more questions, so definitely we'll have more answers coming out.
I'd just like to, I'm trying to get as close to the microphone, but I'd like to thank everybody for their collaborative spirit, and it just made me feel so much better and less stressed out to know that sort of we're all in this together and all helping each other.
I agree, Pam. Totally. I
agree
think it's
too.
really helpful. I just have to tell you guys, I did come up with a two-line strategic plan, though, and it was first activity was to spray, and the second activity was to pray.
Very good.
You need to put that on a bumper sticker.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
I don't go. All right.
All right.
Talk to you
All right.
soon.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lisa.
Bye.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care.
Bye.
Have a good week.
Great, thanks.